Okay, so now you play in Ostende against Jan
Against
Thomas.
Thomas, yeah. It was again a very nice positional play, a very sharp line from the opening in this so-called Dutch defense. This is the Leningrad variation preferred by the Soviet grandmasters Bodvik and the others, Maslov and so on. Tal also played this with pleasure with black because he's very sharp. So you can hope to have something. This is a small combination. If you arrive, if you arrive in good conditions, you can try to play some kind of King's Indian, a very tactical one. If you arrive to play in good conditions, D6, E5. If you arrive to D6, E5 and nothing happens, then black is well and has a very good position. That of course white has to react. I mean, he doesn't allow all this. So therefore, the game is very interesting, positionally and tactically. Both of them. So the line I choose is very interesting because white wants to stop this idea. D6 e5. Well, it's very clear now. D4 now. Okay, now after d4 castle, everything is theory. Now, of course, uh, the main line here is knight c3, and after knight c3, black can play knight c6 or c6 and so on. Theory again. Very complicated. For instance, instead of d5, knight c3, knight c6, and after knight c6, d5. Of course, you have to play d5 because otherwise, black wanted to play immediately e5. And after d5, two main lines, knight a5 theory, knight e5 theory. In both cases, if white plays well, white is a little bit better. But it's theory, almost 30 moves like this. So I played d5, which in that time was a little bit new, like this, is not so much played compared with other lines. So forced my opponent to react himself, over the board to find the plan. Pardon. Okay, so here, what to do? Bishop d7. He could take in d5 or even play e5. Again, if he played e5, you can take en passant in e6. Theory, again, very complicated, but usually better for white. All right, so here, move by move theory again. Rook b1. Black reacted with a5 because white wanted in some positions to play himself b4 very quickly. That was the idea. But now after a5, white has some small edge because of this weakness from b5. Why? After knight d4, now black pushes, tries to close the position, and place himself c5. He has a weakness in b5. You can play knight e6 and later on you control both d5 and b5, or even play immediately knight b5. In both cases, better for white. Not very easy, but usually better for white. All right, so queen e8 waits a little bit and provokes. You have to do something very quickly with white, because if you give him some time, he plays immediately knight a6, knight c5, and later on he wants to push e5. Very clear what to do here with black. The idea. So right, move by move, rook e1, knight a6, okay, e4. Now he has to take in e4. Has to take. Now you take. Black takes. White takes. Knight c5. Everything with tempo. You are forced to go back to g2. But white keeps the initiative. Why? Because the knight from d4 is very good. You had time to push the pawn in d5. You control the square e6 for the moment. And you have the control of the e file. It's excellent for white. But not very clear. Small advantage all the time. Okay, queen f7, bishop e3. Well, until now, everything was very clear. We finished the opening. White is better, and we can continue. White can play for win, of course. Rook c8. He waits to find some counterplay. So b3, waiting again. He has to take if he wants. If white has time to consolidate again with queen d2, it was very clear. It's very unpleasant for black because you have some other big weakness this time on a5. So he hopes now to have something tactical, some tactical counterplay. So e6, bishop back. Look at this. The bishop is moving here and there,
Yeah.
but always a little bit better. In any position, a little bit more, some small advantage all the time. So rook d8. Now he realized he has two weaknesses, d6 and d6. Well, he tries to consolidate, but now white can open the game. After b6, okay, b4 immediately. So now what to do? You have to take in b4, and now rook takes b4. Now, if you are not careful, everything comes very quickly. If you play, for instance, here rook b8, after rook b1, probably you are lost already, because you lose something without any counterplay. So now he has to try to find something with knight a4. And from here, we start the tactical play. Very beautiful also, Not very complicated, but very interesting. Rook takes. Now, if he takes in a4, after knight takes e6, black is in big trouble,
No, because he
Bishop
cannot.
takes, now he's probably lost already. It's pawn for the exchange and complete initiative for white, fantastic initiative for white. And probably he's lost. So he tries to play some other move, and he took in d4. Now, here, of course, you can even give the exchange and, take with the queen and maybe take in d6 or in b6. But it's much better the way I played. I played rook b4 back, I think, no? Rook.
Yes.
Yeah. And here, okay, what to do? If you play bishop c5, normal, after bishop c5 instead of bishop f6,
Yes.
he loses a pawn in every position. Simply bishop takes c5. Yeah?
Yes.
If he takes with the pawn d, he loses the pawn b6.
Yes.
If he takes with the pawn b in c5, then rook b6 and he loses the other pawn in d6. So in any case, completely winning for white.
Yeah.
So he tries to complicate again, and he waits by playing bishop f6, the last hope. And now here white complicates himself also. It was not necessary to play like this. I tried to win a very nice game, very beautiful, But it was probably even much better to take with the bishop, and the advantage is very, very big, probably decisive already, because everything comes with tempo. So okay, after rook takes b6, it was still possible to play d5, and they have to win the second time. Because now, if you take in d5, he has time to put bishop c3 and he wins the exchange. So therefore, the game, it's a little bit complicated from here, but very beautiful until the end. So okay, I pushed c5 now, and it's move by move. It seems, if you look at that position, that black has a small counter chess because he has some initiative. He stopped the first wave of tactical threats from white, and he has his last hope, the central pawns, d5 and d6. But white has, the big edge even here, and very strong initiative, tactical initiative. And it will be very clear. So very simple moves, rook c1. We have the c pawn, the free pawn, and we threaten to do something very quickly. So, okay, bishop c6, he's threatening e5 and d4. This is the idea, no? So a4.
So you give you.
I mean, if he takes in a4, rook takes e6, decisive. No?
Okay.
Yeah, finished.
Yes.
So what to do? Rook d7, he has to wait. But now the pawn comes very quickly, the a pawn, as usual.
The fast draw.
Yeah, it's very fast, So rook d8, bishop d8, and now a6. We give the exchange, but the two pawns, b6, a6, deadly, so in any position. So the rest will be tactical but beautiful, So I took he could resign, but okay, he continued. Rook d8, and here what? Rook, very simple from here. E5, and now b7, exactly on time. Here, if he takes in d4,
Yes.
you can take back in c8, and you win by force at least a piece, after rook takes c6 and bishop takes d5 check. Very simple. So, okay,
Yes.
you take in c8. I mean, he must take in d4, no?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And you have time to take in c8. Okay,
Yes.
you can win in some other ways also, but this is very clear. You win there, takes, rook takes c6, takes, and bishop takes d5 check and resign.
Yes.
Yeah. So, coming back to our game, after b7, he played bishop takes. I took there. He rook b8, and okay, and here bishop b6. The rest is very simple, but okay, beautiful until there. Queen takes. I took in d8, he took, and simple rook d1, and he resigned because he loses by force the pawn from d5, and there is no hope anyway.
Yeah, we have an extra
Yeah,
piece.
very interesting line until the end, but it was very sharp, after the opening, and very beautifully in some moments, tactically like this, complicated, but not too complicated, let's say, by this high level.
Yes.
Yeah, very important theoretically in that time, this line, because could demonstrate how to play with white in such a position, a very complicated position after the opening, but always a little bit better for white. Very clear idea, what to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.